Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here with us today. So we're diving into something incredibly foundational for your Japanese language journey, JLPT N5 kanji and vocabulary. But listen, we aren't just going to sit here and memorize some random list of words. No way. Instead, we're going to look at this through this really cool concept of expanding circles. We'll start right at the center with the individual person, then we'll gently expand outward into the home and family, and finally step right out into the wider world of school and society. Connecting these concepts like this makes them so much easier to remember. All right, let's jump right in.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, counting people and irregulars. Second, men, women, and children. Third, your family versus their family. And finally, school, teachers, and study. Let's conquer these N5 basics together.
All right, let's start with our very first circle. Section 1, counting people and irregulars.
Okay, so what's really interesting here is this single foundational character right here. By itself, it means person and it's pronounced hito. But when we use it as a counter, those words attached to numbers to count things, it's usually pronounced nin. I know Japanese counters can feel kind of tricky for English speakers since we don't really have a direct equivalent, but honestly, if we take it step by step, I promise it becomes really intuitive.
So, let's count. You'll notice the number 1 sitting right next to the kanji for person. Now, you might be tempted to say ichi nin, right? Actually, scratch that, because this is our first irregular counter. One person is pronounced hitori. Hitori. It's an exception, so take a mental snapshot right now. Whenever you see these two characters together, just remember that one person stands alone as hitori.
Moving right along, here's our second irregular counter, the number 2 next to the person kanji. This one is pronounced futari. Futari means two people. You are doing fantastic so far. And honestly, the great news about learning these two irregulars right out of the gate is that once you have hitori and futari locked in, the heavy lifting for counting people is basically done.
You can totally breathe a sigh of relief here, because from 3 onwards, the pattern completely normalizes. You simply take the regular number and tack on that nin pronunciation we talked about a minute ago. 3 people, san nin. 4 people, yon nin. 5 people, go nin. Aside from a slight shift with 4 being yon nin instead of yon nin, it is a wonderfully predictable pattern all the way up to 10, which is ju nin.
And this right here brilliantly illustrates how Japanese kanji function almost like building blocks. We have specific foundational kanji for the individual, otoko for male, onna for female, and ko for child. Now, notice how we can combine these separate blocks to build something entirely new. If you take otoko, meaning male, add the particle no, and attach ko, meaning child, you get otoko no ko, literally a male child or a boy. It's so logical when you see the visual pieces just snap together like a giant puzzle.
Okay, it is time for a quick pop quiz to test how we actually apply this in the real world. Let's say you're walking into this fantastic little restaurant in Tokyo. The host asks how many are in your party. How would you ask for a table for 2? Think about the counters we literally just covered.
Well, if you said futari, you are absolutely correct, and you would be perfectly understood, for sure. But if you really want to sound natural in a customer service setting, like dining out, you're going to encounter the formal counter, pronounced mei. So, for 2 people, the staff might say, or you could request, ni mei. It's just the polite, formal version of counting people, specifically used in hospitality.
All right, let's expand our circles straight into the home, with Section 2, your family versus their family.
The crucial point to understand here is a fundamental cultural concept in Japan, the difference between the in-group and the out-group. When you speak Japanese, you actually use completely different words depending on whether you're talking about your own family members or someone else's. It's this beautiful built-in system of showing humility about yourself while extending respect to others.
Let's see this in action with parents. When you're talking about your own father to someone else, you use the humble word chichi. But when you're referring to their father, you elevate them by using otosan. The exact same goes for mother. Your own mother is haha. Someone else's mother is okasan. Notice how adding that o prefix and the san suffix basically acts like a frame of respect around the word.
And you know what? That same in-group, out-group pattern applies directly to your siblings too. Your younger brother is ototo, but their younger brother is ototo-san. Your older sister is ane, but their older sister is onisan. This visual pattern is incredibly consistent. You're keeping your own family unadorned to show humility, while kind of dressing up the other person's family titles with respect.
Okay, For our final section, we are expanding our circle one last time, right out into society. Section 3, School, Teachers, and Study.
Here's your foundational N5 school vocabulary. We've got gakko for school, sensei for teacher, gakusei for student, and benkyou for study. Now, if you look closely at these words, you'll see a visual recurrence. The kanji sei appears in both teacher and student, and the kanji gaku appears in both school and student. Let's break those down to see exactly why.
Let's look at sensei, the word for teacher. The first kanji, sen, means before or previous. The second kanji, sei, means life. So when you put them together, a sensei is literally one who came to life before you, someone who has walked the path ahead of you and gained the wisdom to share. Isn't that just a beautiful and intuitive way to memorize the word for teacher?
Let's move to the next word and see how this builds. For gakusei, or student, we keep that exact same sei kanji, meaning life or living person, but this time we pair it with gaku, which means study or learning. So a gakusei is quite literally a studying person, or a life of study. By understanding these individual kanji pieces, you aren't just memorizing sounds anymore. You are literally decoding the logic of the language.
And this brings us to a wonderfully practical sentence that you can use right now. Watashi wa Nihongo o benkou shite imasu. I am studying Japanese. You just learned the kanji for person, you know the word for study, and now you have the absolute perfect sentence to explain exactly what you're accomplishing by joining us for this explainer.
So we've expanded our circles all the way from Hitori, a single person, through the home with our family titles, and all the way out into the gakko, the school. You've seen firsthand how logical the kanji's structure is when it's laid out visually like this. So I'll leave you with this question. Which of these new Japanese words are you going to actively use in your studies today? Thank you so much for learning with me in this explainer. Keep up the fantastic work, and I'll catch you next time.